Hey guys, it's Tayla Jones here with Moose Racing. We're back with another how-to video today, and we're going to go over how to swap out your bars and your grips. Super pumped today to be throwing on a set of Moose Racing Flex Series handlebars. These are new in stock. Going to be trying them out for the first time. These are super sweet, come in a lot of different colors. We also have the Moose Racing lock-on grips. They also come in a bunch of different colors. I chose the white and gold because they look super sweet. So we're going to dive in here today, and there's a few simple things that we're going to go over to make it easier on yourself when throwing on a new set of bars and grips. Alright, so let's get started. So first thing we're going to do is take all the controls and components off of the bars. Doesn't really matter which order we do it in, but I'm going to start with the handguards. I'm just going to take off the start and stop button. Now I'm just going to do the controls. Now last but not least is the throttle tube. So we're just going to loosen up these two bolts here, and then it's going to slide off at the end. We don't need to take this all the way off for the moment, because otherwise the throttle tube will fall off completely. But for now we're just going to loosen it up so we can slide it off. All done. So now we have everything off of the bars. We're just going to go ahead and take the bars off themselves. On this bike, I have an XC Gear Mako 360 bar mount system. Every bike's different, and I'm going to take this one off now. Okay, we have the bars off now. As you can see, my one's a little bit different as we have the XC Gear mounts here. But usually the bars will just have these two separate bits here. You take off the top side, the bars will come off. The bottom side here will stay connected to the triple clamps. While the bars are off now though, we're going to go ahead and double check these and make sure they are torqued up so they stay nice and tight. If they get a little bit loose, our bars are going to get twisted, and if they get really loose, they're going to come completely off of the bike, and we definitely don't want that. So torquing these while the bars are off. I got my torque wrench here. Make sure you double check with your own bike's manual to go over your torque specs for this, but my one's already set. We're ready to go. So now we're just going to open these up and get them ready to throw it back on. Okay, so now it's time to throw the bars back on. Got these new ones here. Super excited to try out the flex bars, but if you have the stock mounts, you're not going to have these pieces here on the bars already. You're just going to have the bars go straight into the mounts. But for now, we're just going to throw these on. Make sure these are lined up perfectly. And for now, not everything's going to be exactly where you want it to be. We're going to throw on the top mount, and then we're going to line it up once we have a few bolts in there to hold it all together. Because otherwise, just like this, the bars are going to roll back. It's going to be really hard to get it perfectly set. So once we have a few bolts in there, it's going to make it a lot easier on us. Okay, so now we have some bolts in there. We kind of come around here. They're not super tight. The bars are still able to move. As you can see, we have these numbers on the inside in here. We want to make sure they're lined up, centered perfectly on either side of this. You're able to move them back and forth. And then usually you're going to have a set area of which number you're going to like it on. But now, if you don't know, if you come to the side of the bike, I always like to make sure the angle is exactly the same angle as the fork length. If we have it back here, they're rolled a little bit far back and it's going to be sitting in your lap. And if we come all the way forward, it's not lined up, and then it's going to be pulling you way far forward. So I always like to have mine exactly diagonal with the forks. It makes it the most comfortable, but every preference is different, so make sure it's what you like. Okay, so now we have the right angle that we want, and we have it nicely centered up in the right area. We're good to go ahead and tighten down these 4 bolts on the outside before adding the next punch. Now I can go ahead and add the rest of the bolts. Okay, now all the bolts are in place. I just used the T-handle to get them nice and snug, but it's really important to go ahead and use the torque wrench so we can go back and make sure they're extra tight. Make sure you go ahead and look at your bike's own manual so you know exactly the torque that you need for yours. But for now, we got our set. We can go ahead and do it. Notice that I did both bolts a few times because once you tighten one, the other one will then be a little bit looser. So I want to make sure I double check them a few times just so we know that they're both torqued perfectly. Now we're going to go ahead and throw the grips on first. We're going to do the grips first so that way we know how long exactly they are. So that way we can put the controls around those. So we're going to start with the easier side. Just going to loosen up the grip here. It's already got some Loctite on it, as you can see. Glue. It's going to get loose. That way we're able to slip it straight onto the box. I will just slide it on here. It's a little bit tight, which is good. So making sure when you get the grip on, it's all the way in pushed against the bars on this side. We don't want to extend the length of the bars using the grip. Yes, it is hard, but we don't want that extra piece. It is still plastic, so if you do crash on the end, it will break off, and we don't want that. So pushing it all the way against the bars will stop any kind of breakage. Now we have it on, we're just going to go ahead and tighten it up. Make sure it's tight because we don't want to have two throttles. Coming around to the other side now, we're going to do the throttle tube. Because it's a lock-on grip, it already comes with the throttle tube attached to it. So we're going to go ahead and remove the old one. Firstly, let's take off this rubber. These two bolts right here. Now just come apart. Now the throttle cables. These just pull out of here with the 1 and the 2. Now with the throttle, we come with the option with the cams. It's different cams means different smoothness, different speeds that they're able to turn at. And if we come over here, we got a few different ones. We're gonna make sure we check out our piece of paper. We're gonna go through. It has all the different bike sizes and which cam you're going to need to use on your bike. And then down here, we got the 4 different cams that suit all the different bike styles. Okay, so now that we have the cam, all we have to do is throw it onto the grip throttle tube. We have the hexagon shape right here, the hexagon there. The cam is on the outside. Push it on right there, making sure it's flush, pushed against, sits in well, nice and easy. And then we can come and throw it on the bike. Okay, so now you have the throttle tube and the cam on. And this one has the double with the 4-stroke. 2 strokes only have 1 cable. So the cables are going to go, it's the easiest way I do it. You do backwards and then we flip over. So with these 2 holes right here, we're going to put in 1 and then 2. And then it's going to follow these slits around here. And this is why I say we put it on backwards and then we flip it over. Stays in just like that. Now we're going to put on the throttle housing. I like to tighten it a little bit before throwing it back on the bars. It just makes it a little bit easier to keep it together than it is to twist it around getting it up on the bars. So now we have it done up a little bit. It's not super tight because we need to be able to get it on the bars here. Slide it on like so. So on the throttle side, now it's going to be a little bit different to the opposite. We don't want to be all the way against the bars because then we're going to have the throttle sticking. So all we want is like barely a millimeter off of the bars, the tiny bit, just so we don't have any stickage. And then when we go ahead and tighten up the throttle housing, we're going to do the top bolt first. Always do the top bolt first so it squeezes the top so no dirt's able to go in through the throttle housing. And we'll tighten up that button. Make sure it's tight. Make sure it twists perfectly. Make sure it's not too tight against the end and sticking. Nothing sticking there. And then we just pull that rubber back along. We're good to go. So now we have the bars on and the grips are on. We're able to throw back on the controls and all the components on the bars. I'm going to start with just making sure I know exactly where I want everything to be, have it all set out, so I know everything's going to fit on the bars. Sometimes we get to the end and I'm like, oh no, where we're going to put our brakes. So making sure everything fits perfectly so we can line it up is always key. And then we can go ahead and start throwing everything back on. Quick little pro tip, I like to use Teflon tape or plumber's tape under my levers just so if I do crash, they fold down a little bit instead of breaking off at the ends. It's something I learned as a kid to do, but everyone's different. I just like to do that. Something you can try out. Now we can throw back on the controls. So I'm just gonna get it lined up. We have that tape on there already. Got a little bit of red Loctite. I like to use Loctite. I don't want my controls coming loose. Has a little arrow on the KTM Husqvarna gas ones. I'm not really sure about the other brands, but make sure you got it on the right way. Gonna line them up. I like to always do a little bit finger tight first so I have them straight. Both sides. Get them in the right area. Now I don't know exactly where I want these yet, but I'm just gonna tighten them up enough that they're not just falling down or falling off. And that way we can go back in a second once I get all the controls on and make sure they're in the right spots. You always want to tighten the front bolt first as far as it can go and then do the back one. And you don't want to over tighten these. It will be causing problems later on. Just want them tight enough that they don't move freely. Got the Loctite. Making sure the arrow's facing forward. Started finger tight, and we're gonna go ahead, tighten it up. Doing the front one up tightest. Now I can go ahead and throw on my handguards. Every bike's different, every set of handguards different, so making sure you know exactly where they're gonna fit before you go ahead and put on the controls and everything else is also key. We've already done that. We have it all lined up. So now we have the bars on the bike and all the controls back on the bars. We can go ahead and jump on the bike. So that way we can go ahead and put the levers into the positions that we like the best. And this is a personal preference on where we like them. I really like to have mine pretty much flat, a little bit just barely low diagonal on the bars. If you have them too low, it makes it really hard to grab onto. If you have them too high, then your wrists are going to be way far back, and we don't want that. So I like mine just a little bit below level, making sure we're in the right spots, change them around a bit, making sure everything's all tight. Go over everything. We don't want anything to be falling off. We'll go ahead and retighten up the throttle now that we have the controls in the right spots. Double check it feels good. Everything feels comfy. You may need to go back again later if it doesn't feel exactly right and double check. But for now, everything feels great. All I have to do is throw on a bar pad and we're ready to rock. Okay, last but not least, we're going to make sure we put on our bar pad. Super simple, super easy. It's just a piece of foam, these 3 straps around the ends. Goes on right here, keeps us safe. I don't know how many people I see out there without them, and I would never ride without a bar pad. I'm super stoked with this new setup. Gonna go out and ride and check it out, but you guys can jump on the Any Parts Unlimited website, go into any dealer, and get yours today. Moose Flex Bars, lock-on grips. Be sure to like and subscribe. Check out some more videos coming soon.